And so anyway, today, I'm always thinking, okay, well, what can I talk about? And it's generally about, well, what's going on planet Earth, what's going on personally with myself or any of you guys or the center here, or just whatever, and just draw from whatever topics are relatable at the time. And of course, today, being a couple of days following my big birthday here, milestone, which I don't know about you guys. How many of you guys have reached this 50-year mark? Or how many are going to get it? Okay, so there's only a couple who haven't. So was it just me, or I guess I should have asked who hadn't. Emily said that she hasn't. But anyway, is it just me, or did that bring a lot of opportunity for reflection?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. I really began to think, okay, I don't know why this one hit me so big, but I know my last milestone birthday, it's interesting how the mind works. When I was 40, I was, Judy, you'll remember this, Ellen was in Europe, and Judy and a bunch of friends had a surprise plan for me at a spa in Palm Beach Gardens, of which I didn't make it because I ended up in the emergency room in the hospital. And my appendix had burst, and I was so sick. I can't even tell you, it was unbelievable. So I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and they had me hooked up to antibiotics, and that's when antibiotics, by the way, are good. I wouldn't have lived without it. So anyway, I know I missed the big festivities over at the spa, but Judy was there, and Molly flew in to support me and help me. Emily, you were not even on the planet at that time. And Ellen, of course, was calling back and forth from Europe, making sure I was okay. Now, the funny thing is when she called, I don't know what happened, but after my surgery, I was euphoric. And I was like, oh, I feel great. Morphine, yeah. And Ellen called and says, oh my God, are you okay? You okay? I said, yeah, I'm fine. I feel great. As a matter of fact, when I get out of here, I'm going to fly to New York for my friend Jane's wedding. I'm good.
I'll take you up to the airport.
Then, bang, that was it. And the doctor would come in every day, and he'd just shake his head and say, ugh. He was really concerned, and I'd see this look on his face because he just kept pumping the antibiotics. But eventually, I got well, but the reason I even brought that up was because that was a milestone 40, and that was 10 years ago. So now I have to admit though, the weirdest thing. Last week, I was having these thoughts of like, oh my gosh, I've got to make it to 50 without it, and feel good. I don't want to be sick again. So I was like trying to put that thought out of my mind, like, oh my gosh, it's interesting how those old tapes will click back in. So anyway, but I just kept doing my ho'oponopono and saying, okay, I can choose peace instead of this. I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you, I love you, and I'm well, I'm healed, I'm happy, I'm whole. I did all these little mantras this entire week, and it was just an interesting thing for me to watch, is how these patterns of thought did sneak back in when I thought that they were healed. But the good news is, I made it to 50, and yay! So, that's right, and I expect that many, many more. And so I had decided, okay, well, what is it that I would like to share? What is it? And I just started writing a book again, a second one. The first one is almost done. It's actually very close to being in hand. Thank you, God. And but I started writing another one, and based on a talk I'd given, but I expanded it a lot. It's all good, God, and it's all good. And so as I'm writing this, I'm thinking to myself, and I even put this in the first, in the introduction, that just because I don't feel I have any more or less wisdom or insight than anyone else here, it's just this is just what I choose to do with my life and how I choose to frame it. But everybody has a story to share, and it's equally meaningful and certainly as valuable as anyone's story. So there's no one story that's less than or more than in my mind at all. But since I really can only share from my experience, hopefully some of it will maybe make sense to you guys, give you a little bit of perspective and be helpful. But I certainly value the wisdom, especially of this group. I mean, wow, each of you guys has been on the path as long or longer than I have, and have many, many great gifts to share as well. And a lot of what I do share is from my interaction and being with all of you. So I do value each and every one of you all for that as well. So the one thing is, and I've talked about this before, but what really got me searching and seeking in the first place was years and years ago, I didn't really buy the whole story of Christianity, of being Methodist. Even though I had a good experience, I think Molly can say we had a good experience growing up in church. It wasn't like I had this thing of like, oh, this is awful and they're preaching fire and brimstone. That wasn't the case at all. But rather I got to a point where it was like there has to be more than this, and this can't be. God is bigger than this box that I've been presented here. So I began to seek and go out and find other ways to find meaning and answers that I was looking for. So I went to many classes: tarot, crystal, oh my gosh, just singing bowls, you name it. Anything the Crystal Garden had back in the 80s, I would go to, and I would sneak down there, and after I would taught golf, and I would just run in and take whatever class they offered. So that was really a wonderful place for me to get my footing and a lot of expanded awareness. But I do have to say that I really believed and knew innately that God was always love. I never had that idea that God was anything but love. I never had the belief or idea or thought that God was vengeful and was mad at us and was going to punish us. I never believed in that picture or that story of God. I always knew that God was only love. So that was really the common thread I was seeking to find. Well, what supports that? And really, I find that everything supports that. The only thing that makes it not support that belief or idea is maybe man's interpretation or man's misinterpretation of the messages brought out in these spiritual teachings. And that message is based in duality. And so once we get into duality, good and evil, bad and good, whatever it is we identify with, then all of a sudden we're limiting God. And not only that, we're limiting ourselves. So A Course in Miracles, for me, really was able to just make so much sense. Because I can honestly take A Course in Miracles and I can say, well, gosh, that makes more sense out of Buddhism now, and that makes more sense out of Christianity now, and I understand what this teacher was teaching, and so I was able to sort of find something that sort of brought everything together. And so for me, that was the teaching, and that's the teaching I still would have to consider my primary teaching. But I only say that because it's what resonates to me, it's what I teach, it's what I learn from. And it's also, to me, it really encompasses and invites and includes every other teaching that I come across. So it's been my major path. So what does A Course, and what really have I found out God to be, is neutral. Neutral is the word that I always, when I think of God, I think of, how would you define God? I would say God is neutral. And that means that God is only love. And what is love? But love is unconditional. It's totality of everything. There is no duality in God. So the only thing that creates anything but neutrality or duality is judgment, okay? So because everything in God, in truth, is only love. And a quote I refer to often from the introduction to A Course in Miracles is, the Course doesn't aim at teaching the meaning of love or God, for that's beyond what can be taught, but rather to remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. So what we're really doing is we're looking through the teachings of the Course and other teachings, spiritual and religious teachings, at those thoughts, those belief systems, those patterns of programs and programs that we've been immersed with, I would say not only in this lifetime, but many lifetimes, that have reinforced duality and separation and judgment and fear. So what we begin to do is every thought that keeps us in pain and suffering and judgment is really a veil between us and happiness, or us and peace, or us and God. So what we're here to do is to look at those thoughts and understand that we can dispel those, we can diffuse them. And through the teachings of the Course, it really says when these thoughts come up that aren't of love, ask the Holy Spirit to help you reinterpret these false beliefs or imaginings that we have about something or someone or anything. So it's really important that we do take responsibility for our thoughts. This is, of course, all I'm up here to do is share my experience. I've learned that my happiness doesn't depend on anything that anyone outside is doing or thinking or feeling. My happiness is strictly an internal matter with me. And I think that's when we really gain our true mastery, our true potential and power as spiritual beings, is when we're willing to say that this world is just a projection and a reflection of my thoughts about it. So now I can't blame, I can't attack, I can't defend, because this is a dream, this is a story that I've made up. And so if I don't like what I see, choose again, the Course says. It's really a constant decision to make choices for love, for God, for Spirit. And those thoughts are the thoughts which unify and bring peace and healing not only to ourselves but to each other. Because the healing doesn't occur when I heal, as the Course says, and other teachings as well, it says every time I choose a beneficent thought or a loving thought, everyone is lifted by that because we're not separate. So it goes back to that whole idea of self-healing, and that healing comes through the one function that we all really are here to follow. And who will give me that one word? What's our function?
Love.
Forgiveness, love, absolutely. Forgiveness. The Course says forgiveness, but the one function is love. And that really is an attribute or what happens from forgiveness or through forgiveness. And forgiveness is really not necessarily the old paradigm or idea about forgiveness, but rather forgiveness means, and I find this to be such an important statement, we don't need to, God has never condemned us, so therefore we don't need to ask for God for forgiveness. There's nothing to forgive except our own misperception, our misinterpretation of ourselves and each other's. I love the idea that those who see themselves as whole make no demands. You know, the better I feel, the more at love and at peace I feel, in love and at peace I feel personally, the less I'm affected by what's happening outside of myself. So the more whole we become, the more healed world we begin to see and experience. So I really, after 50 years, I do know one thing for sure, that I cannot, there's no value, and it's delaying my awakening, my sense of peace and purpose, if I judge, if I continue to stay in that. I can't blame anyone or anything for anything anymore. And that's a step up of saying, okay, I'm responsible. That's a lesson that we're taught in A Course in Miracles. I'm responsible for the world I see. So you begin to see that every person who comes into our experience and our awareness has come in with the personality, the persona, playing the role that we've invited them to play in our life. And so once you realize that, we can get mad at people, and I do, and we can get upset about situations, and I do, but I can't hang on to it too long because I know it's my own BS, you know, my own belief system, my own story. So it's like, okay, well, I think that this condition or circumstance is upsetting me, or I think this person did this to me, but in truth, it's my own story that I've made up about them. And to know at a soul level that we've invited everyone to come in and play the role that they're playing for us. And when we can accept that, life becomes much more empowered. I really do believe that. You know, it's a blasphemous concept and thought and teaching for me to even make this next statement, people, not you guys, because you guys know this already, but for a lot of people in other churches or other religions may believe that this is a blasphemous thought, but really, when the Course teaches that, and many teachings, even all spiritual teachings, say that we were created in the likeness and image of God, and that we are God's, that we all within us hold the potential of that God essence within us. So when we can really say, I am God, be still and know that I am God. That's a very scary concept or thought for a lot of people to even entertain. And a lot of people would be running out the door at this point. But I find when I'm feeling down, weak, disempowered in my story, if I just close my eyes, take a breath and say, be still and know that I am God. And, if you can just say that over and just breathe and say that to yourself, that you really tap into a place that is beyond this world, that's not limited by external forces and things that are happening. Because we don't have to be caught up in the illusion unless we choose to be stuck in the illusion. So it's always a choice. It really is. I love, and I think the thing that makes the most sense for the teachings of A Course in Miracles for me is that it teaches on two levels. And the idea that it says that in truth, there was no separation. We've never left the kingdom of heaven. We've never separated from God, and that we're just dreaming and making up a bad nightmare that we are separate. And because we think we're separate, we're afraid. And because we think we're separate, we think, oh my gosh, that's where the idea of a vengeful God comes from, because it's like, oh gosh, I left the perfect home in heaven at my Father's side, and wait till God gets his hands on me. He's going to punish me. He's going to be really upset when he, gets me up there and starts pointing his finger. When in truth, it's all we're experiencing here is just a dream, just like a dream within a dream. Think about when you're asleep and you have a nightmare and you're awakened by that nightmare. Well, you wake up and you say, wow, that was really some nightmare. It wasn't real, but wow, it was a pretty intense nightmare. Well, that's the same thing that the Course tells us. That's the same thing we're experiencing, but we've just reinforced what we think is the reality of this, and we continue to play in it. So it really is our choice how long we choose to stay in the dream. We can stay there for a long time, or we can stay there and be free of it in an instant. So it's up to us to choose that timeline. But in truth, we're not even in it. So we can literally awaken in the split second. All of us can literally make a decision now to awaken, and we would certainly be free of all of this. But is it possible? Yes. Likely, probably not, because we've got so much baggage, so many belief systems that keep us immersed and dredged in it. So it really is about just recognizing all the thoughts and beliefs that we hold that keep us from being in our full awareness, our full consciousness. Yesterday, I know some of you guys like Gary Renard, and on Facebook, there's a fella who wrote a book called "Dude, Where's My Jesus Fish?" And and he's a student of. He's become a friend of mine on Facebook, and he's taken a lot of teachings from the disappearance of the universe, and he's put his own feelings and ideas on it. It's really a cute book. And he had a quote posted from the book yesterday, and it was about forgiveness. And it was about aliens and what about them? And, do they exist? Do they not exist? And basically and I can't quote it verbatim, but it was under the idea that, this is an illusion, this planet Earth, and so is all the solar systems beyond, but there probably are other beings that exist, if you choose to believe that. I'm not sitting here trying to say you have to believe that or not. I would say they do. And they're also included in our dream, and they also are a part of our plan for forgiveness. So everyone, everything, even beyond our understanding and knowing is included in our plan for salvation, our awakening from the dream. So forgive the aliens. We don't need to be afraid of them either, because they're just a part of us. Everything, animals, they're a part of us. I have a lot more sensitivity to animals now than I did in the past. I've always loved animals, but now when I see someone just, almost to a fault, I'd probably take a goat into a bed with me if I could, It's just, I just feel such compassion and love for, all animals. And it's just, you begin to see that nothing is exempt from who we are. Nothing's exempt from God. It's about embracing and loving all of it. And so the oneness, the whole idea of oneness is knowing, and I mention this often, and I mention it because I think it's the biggest stumbling block that I see, is that we would like to keep our little circle of friends here, our little circle of trust, and to leave everyone else out. And, I really love the idea, and I understand it at a deeper and deeper level every day, that my awakening, my remembering of my true nature as an extension of total love is being willing to forgive everyone for everything, and including everyone in my happy dream, that no one is exempt. Because until we forgive and embrace and envelop everybody, we're not going to fully step into our awareness and awaken from the dream. So it's about really looking at even the, as A Course in Miracles mentions, it's some of the obvious ones, it's like, Osama bin Laden, he was evil, dark. Hitler, evil, dark. I mean, that's a pretty obvious dark dream we've all collectively made up. And those are the pretty obvious ones. And yes, those need to be forgiven just as much as Mother Teresa. Seeing those people in the same light, because that's their essence, their being is total love. The facade, the story they're playing, the act that they're playing on this planet may not reflect love, but the essence is always the same. But the Course says, those are pretty obvious. The ones that really keep us stuck is the person who looks at us funny, or the person who cuts us off in traffic, or just someone who says something we didn't like or whatever. It's those little irritations, those things. The Course says those are the things we have to really look at. It's those little mumblings under the surface. Rumblings, I guess, rumbling, whatever. Anyway, those are the ones that really rob us of our peace, and those are the ones that we're continually reinforcing. So, pay attention. What is it that gets your goat and get you upset? Is it, some of the big obvious things? Yeah, we all can have, we can justify our upset at those, and yes, those need to be healed. But what is it in your day-to-day life that's really robbing your peace? Because whether it be a bombing of the World Trade Centers or cutting off in traffic, in that instant, they're both doing the same thing, and they're both putting that veil between us and God. So if we're placing that judgment, if we're letting it rob our peace. And I love the idea, there's no level of difficulty in miracles. So there's no difference. If it's this much an issue or this much an issue, it doesn't matter. Both are delaying our awakening in the same exact way. So we tend to measure things. Well, I was just a little mad, or I was just a little bit upset. It reminds me of a story when Molly, her oldest daughter, was one day they were at Wendy's, and this was when she was little, and Grace ran out into the street, and Molly's like screaming like, Grace, no, no. And so anyway, she brought, she didn't let, I think the story was, and I'm maybe fudging it a little, but she was not going to let Grace go to a party or something that afternoon. And someone said, Grace, well, why didn't you go to the party? And she goes, It was a little bit bad this afternoon, just a little bit bad, and just a little bit bad, not real bad, but a little bit bad, so I can get apart. And we always do that. Well, it's just a little bit upset, but it's understanding that all upsets are the same, and we want to rationalize, we want to make sense of it. It's not any different in the eyes of our awakening. Now, the main thing is, a miracle, and we all love the idea of a miracle, and there's the earthly miracles, and then there's the true miracles. The earthly miracle would be, oh, I'm healed, or oh, I won the lottery, or whatever it is, and oh, it's a miracle, I made it here in 5 minutes, and it's a 12-minute drive, whatever. And, and whatever we, make up the miracle as being, that's all well and good and they're fun, but the miracle is really what we're here to experience, and that's a shift in perception. And that means that a situation that upsets me, by looking at that through new eyes, new vision, and holding Spirit's hand, asking to see through those eyes rather than my eyes of judgment, I can experience peace in all conditions and all circumstances. So the miracle is really what we're all seeking. So it's not, really life is not going to necessarily hand us what we always think we want. But we are always assured that peace is always possible. And it's a choice. It's a choice of tuning in to our God mind rather than our ego mind. So there's a new thing going on Facebook. See, I tell you, Facebook every week. They put out a trailer, and it's called Thrive the Movie. Has anyone looked at that? Not even you, Shelley? Not even Shelley?
I've seen
That's right.
trailers there.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting little film. It's like a documentary. It's coming out in 11/11/11, and it talks about, and it is about the story in the way that it says, this is how the world has been run to this point, big politics, big business, all of these people are controlling, the masses. Well, another story we've made up. But on the other hand, the one thing I do, the redeeming quality I love about it, is the idea that it says, it's time for us to step into our power and for us to come together as a community and say that, we don't have to continue in that direction. So if enough of us, so often when I hear people and they're angry at this president, or they're angry at this corporation or that corporation, it's like those people out here have made this world hell for us. And in truth, we're part of that collective dream. So we have to assume and accept our responsibility in this. But the new movie, the movement really they're choosing to create, is one of which, let's use that same collective mind for creating decisions based on oneness, peace, joy, happiness, where everybody does have, their desires met, their needs met. Rather than feeling like we're a victim of the external forces out there, the bad guys. Because there are no bad guys, in truth, there are no bad guys. And so if we don't like the dream, the collective dream we're seeing, let's shift it. So at this point in time, I think it's very important for us. That's why, we come together here on Sundays and other times get together to reinforce this. Because we're small but mighty. Because the power of love is very it's so far exceeds the power of fear. And when we come together as a group to reinforce this, and then we take this consciousness out into our day-to-day lives, and then we get together and do other groups and listen to other people's perspectives and ideas. It's great to we all have the same intention of the same goals. And use these tools for a means of awakening and thriving. Because really, our purpose is to understand that we are all one in truth. And that I should be just as equally invested in everybody being happy and having their goals and dreams met as I am my own. Now, where I cross that line is I sit there and I think I have to do it for the other person sometimes. Not like I used to, but in the past it was like I was always trying to fix and like, oh, you've got the potential, do it. And some people, we've got to let people do it on their time when they're ready, and it's all good, it's all perfect. So rather than seeing the problem that we think exists and joining that person or joining our own conversation about it, be willing to say, okay, I choose to see the perfected essence of that person, the happy essence of that person, and see that, awaken rather than reinforcing and trying to fix what I've made up about that circumstance and condition. Because if that person is showing up in my life, it's my responsibility to see them as healed and whole, not to see them as limited and lacking. So it really is, I'm very, very excited. We've got, a lot of things happening on our planet today, major changes. Who knows what's going to happen? I don't know. Maybe nothing. I don't know. But, a lot of movies. Maybe nothing. I mean, now our next target date's October 28th. That's the big one. And then we got December 21st, 2012. So we got all these big dates coming up, and the Mayan calendar, and then you've got the one church saying this prophecy, and the scientists saying this, that the world's going to flip and tilt, and, it's like, oh God, what the heck is going to happen? And we all may, be out of money, and who knows? But it's all, I don't want to go in and make predictions, but I certainly listen to what people say. I think it's interesting and sort of say, well, that sort of makes sense or not. But rather, I think the main thing is for us to come together in community and to create a community here in our homes, in our schools, wherever in our office, really be that presence of power and love and forgiveness wherever we go. Because forgiveness is really the whole reason and purpose for being here. That's it. There's nothing more or less to do. I did find a prayer. Actually, it's the very end, and I want to close today with this. And it's the very last section of the course in the Manual for Teachers. And it just, this is my prayer for you, and this is from Jesus telling us, really, you've gone through the teachings of the course, you've done your lessons, your due diligence, you've read the Manual for Teachers, and now what he says to us, and what I share with you is, and now in all your doings be blessed. God turns to you for help to save the world. Teacher of God, his thanks he offers you, and all the world stands silent in the grace you bring from him. You are the Son he loves, and it is given you to be the means through which his voice is heard around the world. To close all things of time, end the sight of all things visible, and to undo all things that change. Through you is ushered in a world unseen, unheard, yet truly there. Holy are you, and in your light the world reflects your holiness. For you are not alone and friendless. I give thanks for you and join your efforts on behalf of God, knowing they are on my behalf as well, and for all those who walk to God with me. Amen. So it is. Namaste.
Namaste.
Ooh.
You want to turn me off?
Is it off?
Oh.